So today we're going to look at, with 4 of the pilot cities, some of the successes, as they see it, of the Hub-In project, of the Hub-In process. Could I have the next slide, please? So our goals today are to look at the successes, some of the discoveries, some of the conclusions that we can draw, and really focusing the question, what can hubs of innovation do best? And we want to show how potentially hubs of innovation can build momentum, the momentum needed to ignite heritage-led regeneration. Next slide. We've produced in this project, and the session this morning with Vera touched on a few of the tools and the methods developed. And in fact, there are, I can do it myself, yes, thank you. There are numerous of these tools and methods, and they're grouped within the project. But what I wanted just very briefly here was to explain to you, before we talk with the pilot cities, the process that we followed. These various tools are grouped as part of a learning process, which we've been working with a number of follower cities. We've gathered together through a memorandum of understanding 19 follower cities, as well as the 8 pilot cities, to try to build a legacy for the project. And this is the process that we've been working through. So it's essentially a 4-stage process. First of all, I should say, we start with an induction process. But the actual regeneration process. So we start with trying to understand the place at this point in time. We call it current landscape. And that's where we identify the challenges as the community, as the municipality, as the stakeholders see it. We then move to a vision. What is the vision for this place? Collectively co-created and agreed. And that vision is part of a roadmap, which leads us into determining actions. Now, we say actions here in the context of a 4-year project. Those following this process will not be so constrained. The actions lead, and you heard from Chris this morning, to a test and grow process, a monitoring, a checking. Are the aspirations and hopes actually being delivered in practice? There will be a legacy for the project around the website, the digital space, which is a repository for a lot of information, an academy that we're building, an online platform. We will be producing guidance in the last few months of the project, drawing everything together. And as we'll talk about a little later, and we've mentioned already, an alliance, a community of interest moving forwards. So I just wanted to give you that context. The actions then, sorry, wrong way. We selected actions collectively relating to local needs. We looked at actions that were capable of delivery within our 4-year period, or at least significant delivery. We wanted to select actions which had the potential to act as a catalyst for transformational change. And we wanted to align those actions with any longer-term actions already planned. And we heard from Genoa this morning where the Carugio plan was already there, funded, and now it's integrated in terms of the governance structure for taking the hub of innovation forward. So we focused on criteria that were co-created, led to innovation and entrepreneurship, importantly, and worked well together. Next slide. We've mentioned the flywheel effect. This is normally used, I think, in terms of business growth. But it is a very good metaphor for the work of a project like Hubin, where we're very much, as Chris was alluding to this morning, we're very much looking not just at what we do today, but how it might develop in time. And it's all about stepping stones, step by step. And so what we have here is a series of individual actions, which we referred to, attracting interest from stakeholders, from the municipality. As that interest builds, attracting new resources, which enables further development of the actions, an extension of the actions, and all the time building momentum until the wheel starts to turn. And that's the flywheel effect that will lead us to longer-term benefits. So with that short introduction to 4 years of work, let me turn to the panel. I've got some questions I want to put to the panel. I'm going to turn and face them a little bit. So it's a conversation. We very much focus in this project, as we've already said. It starts really as a call in the context of UNESCO's urban landscapes. So it's very much looking at the layers of the whole city, the value systems, and so on. It's not just a simple physical regeneration project, if that is simple, but you know what I mean. So let me turn first then to the question. In what ways, let me turn to Andrea, I think, from Belfast. Andrea Thornbury, who is standing in for Kerry. In what ways would you say, Andrea, that heritage values has driven the Belfast approach to innovation?
That's a great question. So for those of you that don't know much about the Belfast Hub In project, we are based on the Maritime Mile. That's our historic urban area. And it's the place that Titanic was built. It's the place that was one of the biggest, or was the biggest port in the world. Had huge trade and also had tens of thousands of men and women working in shipbuilding, linen, whiskey, and rope making. And it's actually the place where Belfast began. So it is a place of heritage and a place of innovation right from its inception. So when we worked on applying for the Hub In project, we were really clear from the inception that Belfast City Council, our municipality, who I work for, I work for the City Innovation Office, and we're responsible for the Smart Belfast initiative. We aren't the key experts in maritime heritage, so we partnered with the Maritime Belfast Trust, the organisation that's developed and established to preserve maritime heritage and to develop key visitor attractions such as Titanic Belfast. So from the onset, we were really clear that heritage was the main foundation. Heritage and co-creation, I would say, are the two cornerstones and foundations of the Belfast Hub In project. On top of that, we developed what we called the Maritime, well, it was actually the Belfast story map, so it was the story of where Belfast began. And that story map mapped 55 tangible and 57 intangible heritage assets across the Maritime Mile. And as that area becomes more regenerated and developed, our biggest fear is that our heritage is going to change or it's going to be eclipsed by new developments. So we developed this story map, and that story map was provided to our innovators in our accelerator program, so they could utilize that to ensure that their innovative programs brought the tangible and intangible heritage to the heart and ensured that storytelling, historic and heritage-based storytelling, placemaking was the heart of their projects as well. And in terms of heritage values, I don't think we can move beyond the role of our communities and our citizens in Belfast. We had a really strong foundation of co-design and co-creation in the development of our framework and our challenge call. And our communities are our gatekeepers to our heritage as well. And they're the protectors of the heritage within their communities and their neighbourhoods. So we worked really strongly with our local communities. We had them as partners, formal partners, in each of our challenge funds and our challenge calls. And David's going to talk about his project later this afternoon. And we brought them in, and they are the arbiters of their historic and heritage-based stories. So we brought them in so that they could be the stories and the heritage keepers.
And what would you encapsulate as the success then of that approach?
I think the biggest success for us in that approach was, quite often, this was a smart city project for us, and quite often communities are the end users of a project like this, where actually they were the gatekeepers and they were the developers and the co-designers of these projects. And that was one of the biggest success stories for us. We had the heritage values, but the community buy-in right from the very inception of the projects, and that was, that hugely impacted the success of our projects.
Sure. I should have mentioned, by the way, we're just showing as a backdrop slides of all of the actions that each of the 8 pilot cities carried out, just to give you a flavour. I should have said that before we started. I wonder, Leea, Brașov, very different city to Belfast. How have you approached this challenge of heritage values driving innovation?
Well, for starters, I think we've considered heritage as the foundation of our approach towards innovation in the historical urban area. We start by focusing on preserving the built heritage, in showcasing the role of architectural lighting, but also including heritage values into light design, because we wanted to create this sense of respect for heritage, to put it at the center of all our actions. And this dual focus allowed us to create, conceive, develop actions that helped us put value on our past, but also embrace the future. If you look at the city as a classroom, our innovational educational program, we managed to create connections between the old and the new, the visitors and the tourists, between the young and the elderly people. We wanted them to just reconnect to their heritage, to the city. If you look at the pretext objects, which are modern urban furniture objects which were created by the pupils and the students to work as cohesion elements, they've also provided us the opportunity to appreciate heritage in new and meaningful ways.
Yeah, thanks very much. And in Belfast, you have a longer-term plan, a heritage lab. Could you say a few words about that? Which was a development, really, wasn't it, of the,
so off the back
heritage focus?
The success of our accelerator program, there was such a huge appetite from all the stakeholders, that was our landowners, our citizens and our communities, to take it a step further. So we launched in September the Maritime Mile Heritage Lab to take the learnings and the best practice from what we've developed through the Hub In project and to make that into a long-term sustainable legacy of the Hub In project, and that will be taken forward by the Maritime Belfast Trust as the sort of arbiter of what happens on the Maritime Mile.
Okay.
And we also have developed as one of our actions the Waterfront Promenade Framework, And within that framework, it's about ecological enhancement and the celebration of heritage. It's about reclaiming the river and connection and long-term plans. And within that, we would be looking at how can innovation help us celebrate heritage on a long-term basis.
Okay. And what about Rick? Have you anything to add on the heritage sort of question?
No. So the historic urban area of the Werkspoorkwartier in Utrecht traditionally was an area where a lot of steel factories were situated. Yeah. So train carriages were built there, bridges throughout the Netherlands have been produced there. And that narrative of blue-collar labor has really helped us to create a new story for the historic urban area, with more creative entrepreneurship, for example. So we have worked that into our vision that we had for the historic urban area and its development for the next 2 decades, so to say. And also in the Hub In project, we always looked for ways to retell that story. And it really, so for example, we had an open call where we placed artworks throughout the historic urban area, and we really, and you saw some pictures up there briefly, but these artworks, they really engage with the story of these steel industry in the area. We also created audio tours through the area that also retell that story. And that really, I think, has created a specific identity for the Werkspoorkwartier that has been one of the accelerators of its attraction.
Sure. Can we move on then to how important, and we've touched on this really most of the day, but how important has stakeholder engagement actually been in tackling sort of key challenges? And perhaps to the panel as a whole, but maybe starting with Susana, how have you overcome contacting or connecting different groups, overcoming barriers, and so on? Because I know it's been quite a challenge, but it's been one of the strengths of the project, one of the big successes.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So for the hub in Lisbon, we had like these 3 main stakeholders that we would like to engage. We would like to build a network. In the beginning, we had this wildest dream of building a network of creatives, entrepreneurs, and local community, all the 3 together, and having all this huge network. But we soon find out that building the community so diverse, it was difficult. And so we shifted to a zoom-in approach, and we started to approach each stakeholders in different times and different elements and different activities. So for the creatives, for instance, we found out that in this area of the Castle Hill, we have this huge community regarding ceramic that has a long history in this, as we are going to see tomorrow for the ones that don't know it yet. But this area has a very strong history of ceramic that still prevails today. And we have very, very good ceramists, and it's a strong community, but they are not connected. So we started by trying to reach out to these stakeholders regarding creativity with these pop-up events regarding ceramic. For the entrepreneurs, we started with an open call that we wanted to be open to everybody. But then we realized that we had to focus and zoom into the entrepreneurs community. If we try to get everybody in that open call, it was not going to happen. So we have to zoom into the entrepreneurs community. And for the local community, for the residents, it was difficult to engage with them also. but shifting it to the intangible heritage and giving them space to tell the story of the place where they lived, what was that area 50 years ago, how they lived that area, how they get to start living there. So shifting that to in that direction, we get their intention and they start being engaged. So.
Thank you. A common issue, I think, we found across many of the pilots was, in some cases, certainly, a disenchantment by local citizens, by local people, even to the extent that the historic area wasn't for them. I wonder if anyone, maybe Leea in Brașov, could speak to that challenge.
Maybe not. Many of you know about the city of Brașov. It is considered, and it's not just us locals that feel that way, but it is considered one of the most beautiful cities in the country. So we set the standards pretty high. But Habin provided a special lens for us to see that even if it is a very beautiful city with a very enchanting historical center, we weren't very fair to our locals. We started prioritizing the city for the tourists, for the visitors. We started over-commercializing, over-touristifying the city. And that's not what we really wanted for our own people. So, in order to approach this disenchantment that we kept hearing said by various stakeholder groups, we realized that we had to engage most of the stakeholders groups, so not just target some of them. And then having so complex challenges, such high level of dissatisfaction, we had to come up with the perfect solution, the perfect group that would try to solve this mess. And then we started to involve the students, the pupils, because they are the future. We wanted them to feel invested in the city's future, to contribute, to come up with solutions, to connect to the history, to connect to the heritage, to hear the story behind each of the areas of intervention, to learn these stories from the actual people that live there, to come up with solutions for those who get along, for those who do not like those areas. It was a pretty challenging process. It was difficult to create momentum, but they managed somehow through these pretext objects that they've created to develop a whole generation process from just gathering the stories, analyzing the areas, investigating the problems, proposing solutions, and then we produced the solutions. And now these pretext objects have transformed just simple passageways into relaxation areas. And almost every object in the squares of Brașov that we've created through Habin has a moral owner. Like, let's say, in every square there's a family or a business owner that takes care, that adopted one of the objects. Mm-hmm. They clean them, they preserve them. And in some of the pictures and also in the speeches that you'll hear next, you will see that these areas now are livable. They are like an anchor for mm-hmm. people to stay and gather.
Yeah, so pride in their place. Yeah, and anyone wants to talk to the issue of building trust and how key that is with stakeholders? Yes, I've heard you saying that's important.
It's definitely important. I think from the Belfast Hub-In project, we might have been a little bit unique because our partner, the Maritime Belfast Trust, had already developed a community network of organisations and community representatives to be involved in all the heritage developments and programmes along the Maritime Mile. So we were lucky to utilise that opportunity and foundations already in place. However, using, for example, one of our communities, which was Sailortown, that was a community that was decimated in the 1960s due to a new road infrastructure, which effectively cut off that community, isolated it from the city centre, but also the waterfront hadn't been developed, so it became a very deprived area. And that community group definitely felt like it was on its own. You know, it didn't feel connected, it felt that it wasn't being heard. So a lot of time and effort was invested into working with that community. That community actually ended up being involved in 4 out of 6 of our Challenge Fund projects. It was a formal partner in 2. And we were so lucky in terms of who engaged from that community. It was intergenerational. We had people children as young as 7 to women in their 80s involved in our development and co-creation. You know, it was an amazing output for our contribution to our projects. But again, it needed trust, and there was a lot of building in that trust. For us, we were so lucky because that it was already being developed in advance of Hub-In coming to the fore in Belfast. So we were very lucky that our partner had already broke the back of developing those relationships, and we were in a unique position to benefit from it.
To benefit from that, yeah. Okay, can we move on? Because I think a key success of this project has been breaking new ground in terms of stimulating entrepreneurial activity. Now, we heard about the importance of that in the ecosystem from Niels, but how do we actually do that? Where do you start, and what was the process? Maybe start with Lisbon and come on to Utrecht. Susana.
So we had like 3 different measures from the end to the beginning, more or less. We can go like this. We are creating a digital hub, for instance, and in that digital hub we wanted to give visibility, connection and cultural promotion of this area and build this entrepreneurial relationship between all the creative industries that happens in this area. We also have innovation programs with students regarding circular economy to build this entrepreneurial DNA in, for instance, students like fine arts or nutrition that are not really used to this entrepreneurial mindset, and put them thinking of innovative ideas, but putting them into action, prototyping, and using our equipments, municipality equipments like Fab Lab, for those that don't know, it's a fabrication, prototyping, fabric, and the BioLab also, for them to start putting the ideas into action and to make them real. And the biggest one was the acceleration program, that for 6 months we gather more than 20 people in developing their ideas and putting them into practice, with the main focus of the ideas and the products and the services should and must be have this idea of this territory, of these people as the main focus. So, for instance, the program, in the end of the program, the project that won the acceleration program has this social curation initiative that gathers the local people in creative activities and trying to make it in a sustainable tourism, and putting the tourists knowing what are the roots, what is the history of this area.
Yeah. Rick?
So for Utrecht, I think one of the biggest challenges with regard to fostering creative entrepreneurship in the city is affordable working spaces. We are, as a municipality, working quite hard on finding affordable spaces, creating new cultural hubs, but also keeping the current cultural hubs that we have in the city. So, for example, in the lovely development of the Werkspoorkwartier, we see also processes of gentrification. We already talked about this earlier today. So it's also requiring an additional effort of the municipality to make sure that the cultural hubs that we have in the area can actually stay in the area, and that the rents that they are paying to American investors or remain affordable, that there is no housing allowed in the area. So these are all efforts that we continuously try to make and also have embedded in the vision that we have for the historic urban area. So that, I think, is one part of the answer. And in HubIn we also worked on that. So the business association that we professionalized during the HubIn period also has one of the key targets to look for opportunities to add more working spaces to the area. And we are also very blessed with large property owners in the city who want to do something good for the city and also use their property to house these creative entrepreneurs. So that's really great. Also in historic urban area. And then the other thing that we did is that we, I already mentioned the open call, which benefited a small group of artists, but we also fostered 6 talent development programs in 3 cultural hubs. And there we really worked on creating programs that fit the needs of the artists and entrepreneurs in these hubs. So that resulted in a very diverse set of workshops, masterclasses, mentorships, vouchers to develop new skills, group exhibition, group artworks. It's a whole set of tools, and really fostered or tailor-made for these specific hubs and these specific groups. And I think that was a really lovely opportunity that we had within HubIn. And the results were also quite nice. I already touched upon earlier today on the ripple effect through the area with all these unanticipated relationships, but also if you look at the skills that people have created with or developed with regard to marketing or cultural entrepreneurship, or even something as simple as a driver's license that allows people to help grow their business, has really made a difference for a lot of entrepreneurs in the area.
Maybe we should say a little bit, Andrea, about the process, the challenge call, and so on. How do you go about, actually doing this in practice on the ground, as it were?
No problem. So in Belfast, we spent a lot of time in advance of developing the challenge call, looking at what the creative sector looked like in Belfast and across Northern Ireland, what the heritage sector was like along the Maritime Mile, and who the key experts were in these areas, because the City Innovation Office isn't the expert in heritage or creative industries. So we pulled together a panel to help us to design our challenge fund brief. And in addition to that, we spent a lot of time, we invested a lot of time in advance of developing the challenge call, linking in with our local communities and stakeholders. And we developed a co-design directory, which had over 20 organizations that our innovators could partner with. Also, in addition to launching the challenge call, so there was a lot of work done in advance of the launch. We held a co-design workshop down at Titanic Hotel, where we invited our citizens, community representatives, our innovators, and our award panel to come together and to start discussing what a sustainable HubIn project might look like, so that when the Challenge Fund went live, they had already identified people that they could formally partner with. So when the Challenge Fund went live, they had to complete an application form outlining their project, how it was innovative, how it enhanced, preserved and sustained heritage in the Mile, and how they were going to process co-creation, how co-creation was embedded in. But they also had to have a formal partner. So we didn't want I'm not sure what it's like for other cities, but when you hear citizen engagement, that a lot of that could be, oh, we've went to this group and we've told them what we're going to do, rather than it being actual co-design, co-creation. So that had to be a formal part of the application process. And then we had an award panel made up of representatives from our landowners, from the council and the Maritime Belfast Trust. We had other innovation funders who'd been through this process before. They had come and helped us develop the Challenge Fund and then the award panel. And then, because this sounds like a lot of work for 20,000, well, 23,000 euro, then those organisations and innovators that were shortlisted had to come and pitch their ideas. So they were given 10 minutes to pitch. David will probably talk about that later. 10 minutes to pitch and 5 minutes for question and answers. So they only had a very short time to get across what their innovative project would be. And then that was in December, so coming up to a year now, and then they were formally awarded in January this year. But our process didn't end there. This was a very different type of challenge call in Belfast. It was much more hands-on. So we provided the facilitation, the support, and we engaged with the landowners so that there was a location for the prototypes to be tried and tested. We didn't put that burden on our innovators because actually, when we're talking about the challenges of Challenge Fund, how do we attract innovators to apply for very small pots of funding while adding the burden of them trying to find a location, trying to find partners, trying to find places to try and test, to try and get permission from landowners and insurance to actually be in that public realm space. So we took that burden from them and we tried to make it as easy as possible so that actually when they did have their partner and their co-creation sessions, the location was set for them to go and develop, co-create and test. And that success led then to the development of the Maritime Mile Heritage Lab. It worked so well that we couldn't let it end naturally at the end of Hubbin, and actually 4 out of the 6 accelerator programs or projects have continued on the Maritime Mile today. They have no end date. They will continue on. And it's the main output for us is it was our mission. It was developed as part of our roadmap process. Was successfully are they helping us to enhance, sustain, and preserve heritage? And through our experience, they have achieved that. We've had a really good outcome in relation to that. Yeah. But developing the Challenge Fund has been challenging in itself. So before we even launched, we faced a lot of challenges.
Yeah, yeah. And Leea, do you have anything to add to this question?
Sure. Which angle would you like to tackle? Because Andrea tackled more angles.
Well, perhaps, again, how did you go about it? Probably differently from Belfast, which was pretty well established.
Well, you know, in Romania, not really Brașov, but the whole country, is very difficult to set innovation as a tool, as something that will bring benefits. We have so many other priorities. Yeah. And then also selling the idea of how an accelerator could help. And there was this big burden to prove that the acceleration program that we designed will actually bring many useful results, because from the beginning, just imagine how municipality accept an idea that pupils and students could propose tactile urbanism measures for a historical center. Said, they imagine what would these pupils or students know. I said they could really easily find out what the problems are. And just to be sure that their ideas can transform into public policy, we will prepare them, we will teach them some concepts, we will try to have them as actual professionals, because this is how we prepare them for their actual professional life. So this accelerator that we've created, this is what it does. It provides them a platform for learning, for experiencing, for prototyping, for changing, for making mistakes and learn from that. It's very important.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to move on to my last question, which is really to all of the panel, I guess. In what ways do you think hubs of innovation have shown the potential, remember we talked about the flywheel effect, to drive successful regeneration, maybe aligning with other initiatives. I'll turn, I think, to, have either of you actually got examples of, maybe Utrecht to begin with, of the wheels starting to turn, of new funding being attracted as enthusiasm and momentum started to build?
Yes, so where to start? I think that there are a couple of important ingredients that made our hub successful in the long run. So first of all, we created this vision together with all the stakeholders in the area of what the historic urban area should look like. So I think that we have a very clear narrative of what the direction is that we're going in, and that helps people to start participate in the project. Also people, you know, company owners for whom it then becomes also worthwhile to also invest a little bit in the hub. So this shared vision, I think, is important. I think another important thing is that we have on board all the important stakeholders in the area who can also contribute to the further development of the area. So all the different cultural hubs are on board and they see the greater purpose, but also the property owners and the traditional business owners are on board and also see its value. And the hub, as we had it in Utrecht until the Hub In project was really running on people volunteering and putting in their own effort to keep it going. And that at some point, if you want to make really a bigger impact than that you do, and you want to step up your organization, that at some point is going to cost a bit of money. Hub In allowed us to make that initial investment, so we invested a little bit in helping to professionalize the hub, and that allowed the hub to show what its added value is. So we developed different committees that started to make, you know, for example, the open call, but also at other parts working on greening the area, etc. And that convinced others that the hub has its ability to make a difference, and that also convinced people or the bigger organizations to make long-term financial commitments to the organization.
So what sorts of commitments have been?
Financial?
Financial, yeah.
So the bigger businesses in the area, they, at least for 3 years, are financial contributing to the continuation of the hub. And then we also have an initiative fund who also has made a pledge for 3 years to commit budget.
We're talking several $100,000, presumably.
Yeah.
Euros.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to contribute to this one?
I just wanted...
Anna?
Working, yeah. To point out that we still have 5 minutes left, thanks to Sophia's panel. And
Well, we started late, be fair.
to complement on the question, I think what our hub of innovation brought to the city was this sense of shared purpose, sense of community, empowering simple citizens into providing something for their city. It was not something that was top-down. It was not developed by the municipality or any governing structure. It was coming from the ground, from the citizens, from the very young generations. And it proved that in those areas where they provided solutions, now we have new entrepreneurs, new businesses that opened because those areas just flourished. And I think that this hub of innovation is one of the greatest of achievements a city can have without even pitching in.
Final word, Andrea?
I suppose we would call it more a multiplier effect, but for Belfast, here we are 4 years down the line, and we have seen the development of a waterfront task group and the development of a framework to reconnect our waterfront to make it a world-class waterfront. But off the back of that governance structure and that framework, we are looking to, we've been successful in some funding applications, but we're looking to apply for a £10 million fund for the waterfront through the Heritage Lottery fund as well. We had 6 successful innovator projects, 5 of which have been successful in achieving other funding, more than doubling the total that was invested into the Challenge Fund, which is fantastic. We also have, off the back of the framework, a new kiosk is opening in the most desolate part of our Maritime Mile, and it's worth £400,000, so I don't know, 420,000 euro. It's a sustainable initiative to attract footfall, but also to stop it from being grey, because parts of it are very much grey. And in addition to that, we are excited about the reconnection of our communities. That's an ongoing legacy of the Hub-In project, and we're so happy with the process of that. So we definitely have had a multiplier effect. It's ongoing. We're not over now that the project is coming to an end, and we're excited to see how we can continue to take that forward.
So, do I have time for any questions? A few minutes? Any questions before we wrap up? Okay, I think just a few words from me then. I think connecting key stakeholders has been a key part of the success of the Hub-In approach. I think building an entrepreneurial base as an asset, you could say, in terms of skill levels, in terms of acting as a catalyst. And really the takeaways for me are that although some of these actions you've been seeing, you can surely have seen the range and the depth of connection into communities, the number of different people coming together. But it's really that the sum is greater than the parts. It's when you take it together and you look at the process that it's igniting and taking us forward. And so I would say qualitative and quantitative, but absolutely qualitative is a key ingredient in this process. And lastly, it does appear to be a credible innovation model to ignite longer-term transformational change, but of course time will tell. I've got one more slide, but if you put that up for me, it's on a different. Pardon? I can't do it. No, it's on the. Can I? No, it's not on this pack. Can you put the final slide on? There we are. This is just to suggest to you, you have a look at this QR code, you grab it. This is a wonderful little video of storytelling coming from each of the pilot cities. Dana, is it displayed anywhere? Or is it running anywhere? No, it's not. So grab the QR code, and it's quite short, maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, a bit longer. Yeah, if you can get the QR code, that would be good. I'm finished, I think. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.